British paedophile ran Masonic Lodge to set up for GCHQ. One of Britain's most influential paedophiles was the head of a Masonic Lodge founded and frequently frequented by GCHQ spies. Keith Hardin, former membership secretary of the Paedophile Information Exchange, was made worshipful master of the Mercurius Lodge in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire in 2011. The child molester, who died last summer, presided over ceremonies and rituals from an ornate throne. Hardin was convicted of an indecent assault against 4 children aged 8 and 9 in 1958 and classified as a Schedule 1 offender, which meant the offence remained on his criminal record for all his life. His name was also on the list of about 400 persons of interest, paedophiles, members seized by police in 1984, the year the organisation disbanded. The Sunday Express revealed earlier this month how Hardin met MP Cyril Smith, there again, and Leon Britton in the 1980s when he ran a North London antique store. So they use fronts. So the Pizzagate, where, places where you wouldn't even think sometimes. 35, but then places that are so obvious, like, Disneyland and Legoland, and whole families just go missing. Whoop, where'd they go? 35 years ago, he appeared alongside Pedophilia television presenter Jimmy Savile in a Christmas special of Jim'll Fix It. The lodge boasts of its government communications headquarters heritage on its website. A source close to Hardin revealed the Mercurius Lodge is known as the Spies Lodge because it was set up by GCHQ, and over the years many intelligence officers has become members. These are people trained to find out sensitive information, and yet none of them had any idea of Keith's background and past convictions. You're right. They even voted him the highest honour by making him worshipful master. Keith felt the Freemasons were somewhere he finally belonged. He called them his brotherhood. When he died last year, they arranged his funeral and made sure the ceremonies started at midday because the time apparently has significance within Masonic ritual. Spies displaced London and Bletchley Park in Buckinghamshire, where the German wartime Inimico was cracked, set up the Mercurius Lodge in 1957. It meets at the grade listed Cheltenham Masonic Hall, purpose built in 1823. Hardin ran the Mechanical Music Museum 10 miles away in North Leach after moving from London in 1987. In 2013, he organised a trip to the museum for Freemasons and their families. A photograph shows Hardin wearing a Masonic apron, colour and medals during a ceremony a couple of years ago. The Mercurius Lodge last night declined to comment. Detectives probing historical sexual abuse allegations revealed on Wednesday that they're investigating 1,433 suspects, including 135 from the entertainment industry, 76 politicians, 7 sportsmen, and 43 from the music industry. They're so prevalent they are, people. Our culture is prevalently paedophilic, and unfortunately we need to wake up to it, because our children are the target. I don't have kids, and I really want them, but I cannot bring them into this world. Arrest warrants issued for the Pope, the Queen. Really? Yeah, really. You look close, you find this couple for the Queen. 2 incidences. A Canadian court, de jure, operating under British common law, has issued arrest warrants for Pope Benedict, the Queen and Prime Minister of Canada, and dozens of other officials. The International Tribunal of Crimes in Church and State handed down their verdict in February, trying all parties in absentia when no one answered their subpoenas. A sworn jury found the 32 defendants guilty of crimes against humanity, a charge which implicates them in torture, kidnapping, and most importantly, genocide against the indigenous people of Western Canada, focusing on 50,000 children who died during the forced internment at re-education centres opened by the church and state. Look, the re-education centres are evil. They're going in China, they're going to be here. Pretty soon, you're going to be locked up. According to Kevin Annett, a spokesman for the organisation, they've got some of the most powerful world figures shaking their boots. Maybe that's because the ITCCS isn't just some wild hair crackpot jackrabbit somersault trapeze show, but a highly organised international group of official legal experts. Its headquarters is in Belgium. Wow, here we go. With affiliate centres in Rome, London, Dublin, New York and Vancouver, and support coming form at least 15 nations around the world. Do they really pose a threat to some of the oldest, largest and most protected cabals in the West? Annett thinks so. Nothing that free affiliate lawyers who came out with their involvement too early died mysteriously, probably murdered, according to him. So the court used precedents dating back to the Nuremberg trials, in which the UN prosecuted high-ranking Nazi officials for the genocide known as the Holocaust. The genocide of Native Americans far outnumbered the death toll of that infamous tragedy, and yet no one has been held accountable to date. On December 9th, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly passed Resolution 263 A during the Convention for the Prevention and Punishment for the Crimes of Genocide. Article 2 of the resolution defines genocide as any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnicity, racial or religious group as such, killing members as a group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of one group to another group. Well, that's exactly what's going on today, people. The forced assimilation of native children by taking them from their families and traditional communities, placing them in church-run schools and forbidding them from speaking their own language and practicing their customs, constitutes genocide alone. The children were basically held hostage as collateral, making sure that none of the indigenous people did anything drastic while their land was being stolen. The death rate at these schools averaged 13 to 50% for over 66 decades, resulting in undisclosed mass graves and government denials that persist to this day. The forced removal of tribes, forced sterilisation of indigenous women and the active mission to destroy indigenous ways of livelihood all lay precedent for the charge of crimes against humanity. But this tribunal focused on the heinous conditions of the church-run boarding school. Forced assimilation has been rule for all British colonies or Commonwealth since the Empire began its often overlooked genocidal imperial conquest. It's been going on for decades, people. We've been doing it for a very long time. We are the most evilest and most corrupt nation on this planet, and yet the people do not know it. One sworn testimony directly implicates the Queen herself in the abduction of 10 native children, according to testimony of William Arnold Coombs. You can read the story. And it goes on and on and on and on and on about how guilty these royal people, royal lines are, about how paedophilic they are, how satanic they are. And there's more. You investigate. There's more. There's at least 2 arrest warrants for the Queen. Major police investigation of VIP paedophile ring collapses. Again. Why? Because they're corrupt. Corrupt. He's a paedophile himself, can't you see? A major investigation in the UK into an alleged paedophile ring has collapsed. Operation Midland had been looking at an allegation that 3 children had been killed as part of this ring, and a number of high-profile political figures had been involved. Harvey Procter, who served as Conservative MP from 1979 to 1987, was the final living suspect under the investigation, was today informed that he will face no charges. In a statement today, Metropolitan said, a man in his 60s was previously interviewed under caution, has today, Monday, 21st of March, been advised by officers working in Operation Midland that he will face no further action. The Metropolitan Police confirmed earlier today that the operation, which began in November 2014 in response to press inquiries, had closed after 16 months of investigation. As of last November, the cost of it stood at $1.7 million. What was the investigation about? Well, cases based on allegations made by an individual known publicly as Nick. He claimed that a number of high-profile political figures had been involved in the paedophile ring who had allegedly committed offences between 1975 and 1984 at a number of different locations, most of which were in London. Nick had come forward with allegations that he had been abused himself and that he was aware of a wider ring of abuse in which the 3 alleged homicides had happened. Yeah, because they commit suicide as well, these people, and what does it say about that in the Bible? About committing suicide and all you should doing, how that relates to the spiritual world and the unseen world, which people don't seem to understand is real, just because you can't see it. It's real. During the course of the investigation, the names of these allegedly involved began to surface. Among those were the Lords, here we go, Bramall, former head of the British Army, Lord Leon Britton, we already know he is, both of whom had their homes raided by police. But nothing's going to happen to these people because the MI5 and all the other people work together and slap on the wrist. Well done. You're doing your job. Well done for being heavily paedophilic. We reward paedophiles in our country, people. Proctor also later said publicly that Nick had also named former MP Sir Edward Heath, former head of MI6 Sir Maurice Oldfield, and former Director General of MI5 Sir Michael Hanley. Come on. Britton, who died in January 2015, and Lord Bramall, who is still alive, fervently denied the allegations made against them. Of course they do. Credible and true. Today's revelation is an embarrassing step down from the Met Police, who are seen as having stacked their reputation on the credibility of their claims. At a press conference in December 2014, the claim brought forward by Nick was described as credible and true by the Met Police. Responding to these findings, Proctor issued a statement to the BBC calling for a truly independent public inquiry into the investigation. Why, when you already know it's true? Some people have come forward to defend the investigation. Speaking earlier today on LBC Radio, Peter Saunders, the National Association of People Abused in Childhood, said that a line should be drawn under it, and that the Met Police main error was referring to the accusation as credible and true rather than the investigation itself. While Operation Midland may be at a close, the door was not completely shut on the case, as murder investigations are never closed. Because 3 people were dead. Such a sad world we live in. The world is going downhill fast. You need to see this. The rise of Babylon. The whore of Babylon. Excuse me. So the last surviving child of Winston Churchill. Mary Somers, who died aged 91, was the last surviving child of Britain's wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill. She spent an idyllic childhood at Chartwell, the family estate in Kent, where she tamed fox cubs, raised orphan lambs, and played in a brick house built for her by her father, whose hobbies included bricklaying. Guests at Chartwell included Charlie Chaplin, who amused her by impersonating Napoleon, and T.A. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who dressed up in his Arab robes. On the eve of the Second World War, Noel Coward sang Mad Dogs and Englishmen to her family and their guests. During the war, after overhearing a general advising her father that England should seek women for understaffed anti-aircraft batteries, she enlisted as a private without his knowledge. She accompanied Churchill to summit meetings at his personal aid, including the Potsdam Conference in 1945, where her father, President Harry S. Truman, and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin planned the post-World War. She found Stalin small, dapper, and rather twinkly. Several ill-fated romances, she married Christopher Somers, a dashing member of the Coldstream Guards, and nurtured his career as Tory politician, ambassador to France, and last governor of southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. They had 5 children. Right, National Theatre, she became Lady Soames when Christopher... I mean, these people all placed themselves in high places. Like when Christopher was knighted in 1972. Oh, knighthood. Pedophilia and knighthood, people. After her husband's death in 1987, she chaired the National Theatre for 6 years, but her most notable personal achievement was a series of books she wrote about her family. The first Clementine Churchill. The biography of a marriage. The biography of her mother won the Wolfswim History Prize. Soames described her mother as an old-fashioned radical with latent hostility towards the Tory party, which her husband happened to lead. Her other books included an annotated family photo album, a study of Churchill as a painter, and a 702-page collection of letters between Prime Minister and his wife. Soames later came to be regarded as something as a national treasure. She was named as a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature and a Dame of the British Empire. In 2005, Queen Elizabeth appointed her as a Ladies' Companion of the Garter. Now the Garter, the Ladies' Companion of the Garter, is another secret society for the women and witchcraft. And that's what this person said about a witch hunt, and how in the video, is this going to be a witch hunt? Well, witches are real. They say they're witches, these celebrities and the female secret societies. Just putting it out there. After the death of former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in 2013, she was one of only 2 living non-royal women to be honoured. The other is Eliza Manningham Buller, who commanded Britain's counter-terrorism efforts as head of MI5, the Internal Security Agency, from 2002 to 2007. Mary Spencer Churchill was born at Cartwell in 1922. A year earlier, her sister Mary Golded died, aged 2.5, of tonsillitis. Her arrival, she wrote, helped compensate her parents for the loss. She said, a child of consolation. I brought this article up because I thought I didn't actually read it prior, and perhaps I should have, because I thought it might go into actually what he was like, and if in order to do that, I think you might have to read her the manuscripts, or what she's written, the 702-page thing. So sorry about that. That's a bit of a waste of time. How Thatcher's government covered up a VIP paedophile ring. And again, you see the symbolism, people. It's there in plain sight. So, a newspaper editor was handed startling evidence that Britain's top law enforcement office... What's going on? Go away. Official knew there was a VIP paedophile network in Westminster at the heart of the British government. What happened next in the summer of 1984 helps to explain how shocking allegations of rape and murder against some of the country's most powerful men went unchecked for decades. Now, before I go on to the next bit, the Queen's arrest warrant was actually implemented, and the guy that did it got murdered. You can look it up. I didn't bring the article up. I totally forgot about it. Just reminded myself then about it. But yeah, the guy, he was ex-military and then police, and basically decided to use the arrest warrant, and he got murdered before he could, because he was very, very serious about it. So don't go to think that you can get these people, because you can't. And the only people that can are the public on a massive scale. When we are the majority and we do all the work, we are the creators of their world. But we gotta stop it. Stop doing their bidding. So, less than 24 hours starting to inquire about the dossier presented to him by a senior Labour Party politician, the editor was confronted in his office by a furious member of Parliament who threatened him and demanded the documents. He was frothing at the mouth and really shouting and spitting in my face. Don Hill told the Daily Beast, "He was straight at me like a raging lion. He was ready to knock me through the wall." Despite the MP's explosive intervention, Hale refused to hand over the papers, which appeared to show that Leon Britton, Margaret Thatcher's Home Secretary, there it is, Sir Leon Britton, was fully aware of a paedophile network that included top politicians. And I'm not going to read any more, because I think you kind of get the point. that they cover this shit up continually. Now, in a previous video, I talked about the LGBT movement, and I've brought this up again. Now, I'm not going to read it. It's up to you if you want to read it, what they're saying and what they're about. You know, you can find the files on the government file. You know, just type in LGBT government plan, LGBT action plan, you'll find it straight away. But this is being implemented into primary schools, and so you have to ask yourself, why are they doing this? So primary school pupils should be taught what it means to be LGBT. Primary school children should be taught what it means to be LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender doctors. Now, the kids don't even need to know about sex at this age. They don't need to know anything, you know? Maybe like secondary school, yeah, fair enough, but at primary, forget about it. This is to do with the last generation, as it says in the Bible. And basically, it may not be the first class, it may not be the second class, it won't be the third class, but over a period of time, it's going to change the language, it's going to change our culture, it's going to change us sexually, to the point where people are no longer but know what sex they are, or identify as a sex, even though they have a penis or a vagina. And this is all to do with the children, and basically depopulating the planet, and also causing major brain damage to them when they're young, because they believe anything when they're young. And unfortunately, this is going to seriously cause major problems in mental health. Now, they're saying that they need to teach this because of mental health. And you see, the irony is that they're telling you the truth by inverting what they're doing. So they say the things they're doing, but in reality, these are the things they want to do to you. Mental health issues, you see. So the Royal College of Pediatricians and Child Health is urging ministers to go further in their guidance on sex and relationship classes, which will become compulsory from 2020. Do you hear that? Compulsory, people. Draft government recommendations say schools are free to determine how they address lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender issues, ensuring teaching is sensitive and age appropriate. Now, they've already got certain classes already running to teach the teachers how to approach these subjects and how to teach them. You know, it's already in place. It's already on the road. It's not something that they've just come up with overnight. And so, in a minute, what I'm going to show you is that the transgender movement has everything to do with depopulation. You know, and Freemasonry. You know, and sodomy and the sodomites, because the sodomites were the priests were transgender priests. You know, like to young boys. So far it goes back to Babylon. But senior doctors are calling on the government to be more upfront, saying that primary school children should be given clear information about different types of sexuality. There's only 2 types of sexuality. Well, in reality, there's 3, because you can be born hermaphrodite, and therefore they could be both. But in reality, you are one sex or the other, male or female. There's no, oh, today I feel like I'm going to be a dog. No, you're not though, are you? You're a human being, and you're a male human being, or you're a female human being, or a child that is a child. You know, there's gonna, you know. In response to a consultation on the matter, the Royal College says there needs to be a clear statement that LGBT people and relationships are part of teaching about healthy relationships in primary school. This can be demonstrated in relation to families, but it also is helpful to children to learn the meaning of terms such as lesbian, gay and bisexual. Pediatricians also said they should be taught the proper names for body parts and about emotional changes during puberty. Dr. Max Davey, the college's officer for health promotion, said, "We need to talk to children like they're intelligent beings. They are curious. My children know people who are gay or lesbian. It's not that big a stretch to be talking to children about bisexuality. Frank discussions about such matters will prevent sniggering at the buck," he said. Transgender is the umbrella term for people who identify with different gender from the one they were assigned at birth. Often diagnosed as gender dysphoria, the term transsexual refers to more specifically to someone who has a medical intervention and is considered archaic. You see that? You see this is deeper than what you could ever imagine. This stuff. The language they use. Public awareness. The number of people being diagnosed with gender dysphoria is on the rise as public awareness increases. When Caitlyn Jenner appeared on the July 2015 cover of Vanity Fair, her first photo shot since coming out as a trans woman, Google searches of the word transgender reached an all-time high worldwide. In the UK and most countries around the world, children need to wait until they are adults before they can undergo gender reassignment surgery, but they can be prescribed synthetic hormones to suppress puberty. See, this is what they want to do. They want to destroy nature. They want to suppress puberty. The NHS, which causes what, people? What does suppressing puberty do? It suppresses your problems. Infertility. Suppress puberty, suppress infertility. The NHS says the effects are fully reversible, so treatment can be stopped at any time. Liars. There is no specific age when puberty suppressing drugs can be prescribed. It depends when a child goes through puberty. The US state of Oregon recently made it legal for 15-year-olds to undergo gender reassignment surgery. Most countries that do allow such surgery, including the UK, require the patient to be 18 or older. Rightly so. Because at the age of 18, they are now an adult. And at the age of 15, they are still under the house of their parents and they are still a child. Under President Obama, legislation was introduced to allow transgender soldiers to openly serve in the military. His successor, you know what that is though? Because Michelle Obama is a trans herself. Man. His successor, Donald Trump, has announced plans to rescind that policy. All branches of Britain's armed forces welcome transgender recruits. I'll read it one up. This is about giving things their proper names and demystifying them. There is nothing mysterious or shameful about it. It's not about promoting LGBT as a superior to anything else. It's just setting out the facts, he said. Right, so you see that statement? There's nothing mysterious or shameful about it. Right, there is, being associated with pedophilia and liking children. And they don't think they're superior or anything, do they? To us? The normal human race? Or anything? Of course they do. A public consultation on government guidance on relationship, sex and health education closed last week. It follows legislation which means relationship education will become compulsory in primary schools, with sex education in secondary schools from 2020. The college said the government's corrupt current plans do not go far enough. What? Yeah, that's what I mean. The things I'm saying here, it's going to get much worse. Much worse. Dr. Davey said, "We have got a strong commitment against discrimination on LGBT and we need to commit to that." Now currently, there's no connection to LGBT whatsoever, right? And paedophilia. Nor is there any connection to, let's say, LGBT and Freemasonry, right? Of course, I'm just trying to show you that connection now, but I'm just saying that the LGBT is connected to paedophilia. It's not about me, my personal feelings about gay people or lesbian people. This isn't about them, it's about what they're going to do to the children's minds and the future of humanity. Couldn't care less if you were gay or lesbian. Do what you want in this world, right? As Aleister Crowley says. Dr. Davey said, "We have to have a strong commitment against discrimination on LGBT, and we need to commit to that." The senior doctors suggested such discussions were best when children are in the final 2 years of primary school, aged between 9 and 11. However, he urged teachers to take care in explaining transgender issues, amid an increasingly heated debate about a government consultation allowing people to self-identify as their chosen gender. Jeez. What are parents doing? You know? If that was my kid, I'd be like, "You're a boy. Alright, you got a penis, you're a boy. If you want to know about sex, there you go, you got a penis. Done. What'd you do with it? You'll find out when you're older." It's enough. I think it's very contentious, so I think you have to be quite bland, he said, suggesting that primary school children might be told some people identify in different ways. You have to love and respect them. Love and tolerate everything, even though this world is dualistic. And you cannot possibly believe that everyone is on the wrong side of the line, the dividing line between good and evil. You need to see evil to cross over to the good side. It is a tricky, nuanced debate, so I think it's best to stick to talking about a culture of love and respect, he said. Right, when they're the ones that are causing all the hate. Primary school pupils should also be given information about healthy behaviours during pregnancy and parenting, the RSPCH said, including familiarity with breastfeeding. I could talk to you about that as well, and how disgusting it is that the things that they're doing with the milk and how breastfeeding is the only way, really. But, you know, never mind. It's about how to grow up in an environment where breastfeeding is normalised, being matter of fact about it. So what's breastfeeding really got to do with the LGBT movement? I have no idea. Really, I mean, I watched a documentary and it's frowned upon to be seen women breastfeeding in public, and I think that's nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. It's nature. In its call for evidence, the Department for Education said opinions were split as to whether it's appropriate to teach any subjects relating to sex education in primary schools. You're right, is it appropriate, people? I don't think it's appropriate. About when children should be taught about LGBT relationships. About never. How about they just go work it out themselves? Just like everyone else has to. DFE spokesperson said, "We want all children to grow up to become happy, healthy and safe, which is why we are making relationships education compulsory for all primary schools, as well as relationships and sex education compulsory for all secondary schools." I thought sex education was compulsory at secondary schools already. Huh? The draft guidance is clear that teaching should look at healthy relationships, which include LGBT relationships, and that all pupils learn about equality. The draft guidance is also clear that RSE should be relevant to all pupils, whether they are developing sexuality or identity in an age-appropriate way. Hello? You only are one sex, all the other. Word is going on, man.